Airplane.
All right. You're good to go.
All right. Hang
I
on.
didn't do anything.
Yes. All right. So let's see. Stop sharing for a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Got this
right.
back up.
What's
up, Boo?
That was Boo.
What's up?
Hang on. There. Boo.
What's up?
Boo. Everybody loves Boo. All right. So now we're recording. I'm gonna share my screen one. Share that. All right, now you guys can see the PowerPoint. I'll put it on the whole screen. Except now I need to stop sharing and share on screen 2. I apologize. Hold on. We'll get there. Share on screen 2. Share. Move us over here. All right. Now we are ready to start. Yay! Sorry, Artem, you have to watch all this. Anyways, all right. So we are here to talk about some of our fundraising best practices. And I thought a good way for us to start is to talk about what IFAPAC is and what IFAPAC isn't. And IFAPAC is actually not a federal PAC, nor is it a state PAC. In fact, IFAPAC is not a PAC at all. IFAPAC is just a term used to describe the 52 state and federal PACs that NAIFA sponsors. And I know some of you would really like to not count Greater Washington, D.C.'s PAC because they don't do much with it, but it is one of the PACs that we sponsor. But what IFAPAC is a collecting agent. What is a collecting agent? Well, as far as the way we operate our collecting agent, we are like a piggy bank. All the money comes into IFAPAC, and from there it goes through a long process on our end, whether it's decided where it's administrative and political. And this is one way when you're at events right here off the bat that you guys can help us. When you're taking credit cards, and hopefully you can move to iPads and stuff soon. But as you're writing down credit card information, if you see that their credit card name is like on mine, it says, you know, Stephanie Nicole Sheridan NAIFA, then write admin on the contribution form for us, because that lets us know that it was a business card. Any card that says, you know, anything, even if the card just says Sheridan Insurance Agency, write an admin on that paper for us and try and train your fundraisers at your booth to know to do that. Because if your credit card is not your 100% personal credit card and it's a business credit card in any way, the money has to go administrative. And Laura in Wisconsin, she likes to use her business credit card, and this year at the silent auction was one of the first times I had taken her personal credit card, and she had said, why I've always used this. And I was like, Laura, it says right here, and it's a business card. And that is the best reason you have to give, is we need to stay legal. And if they argue with you, you know, write admin on the form after they walk away. You know, I mean, like, we can't keep having that argument with them. But that's one way in collecting of funds that, as you guys are taking credit cards, that you can help us in determining if they're administrative or political. Obviously, if it's not the same, if Michelle is making a contribution for Stacy, and so the contribution is Stacy, but it's Michelle's credit card, then that's also administrative. But we are generally able to see that because the form says Stacy, but the contribution part says Michelle's name. But if you happen to notice that, go ahead and put that on there. And then from once we divide the money administrative and politically, and then based on the answers on the directive, the money is either all stays federal, or it will then go to federal and state, depending on what their directive answer is. We have a variety of laws that oversee IFAPAC, but
I have a question before you go.
Yeah.
Can you go back a slide? So if it only would go political if it's a personal credit card or cash.
Check or cash, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And on a check, it has to do with the naming of the check, but we will see the check and we can make that determination here. And hopefully people will stop using checks. And when they start using their credit card online, and just typing it in when people, either send them through the online portals, which are now mobile friendly, and they do it themselves, on there they have to verify that, yes, this is a personal credit card. And if they do that and it's a corporate card, that satisfies the FEC standards. So they have to verify that themselves. If they verify it incorrectly, we have done our due diligence and our best to collect that, but if we're writing it down, we can clearly see. So, but when they're typing it in, they have to verify that it's personal dollars, that they're a U.S. citizen, that they are legally able to do this, that, and like 5 other things. So, but when you're writing it down, just check on those things.
Hey, Stephanie, before you go off real quick, can you talk about the directive? We have a bunch of people that are new to the team and weren't around when the whole pay-to-play thing came up.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the directive itself and the purpose and all of that?
Yes. Okay. And so the IFAPAC directive, and I'm just going to move the slide real quick, comes because of the SEC and FINRA. So the SEC, FINRA, and actually the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board too. But in 2011, the SEC released their pay-to-play rule, and in March of 2011, and in August of 2017, FINRA released their pay-to-play rule. We do have a section on the new website and on the old NAFA.org that talks about pay-to-play rules, but what the pay-to-play rule was trying to restrict contributions at the state and local level for people who do business with municipalities and governments. So some of our members could be selling the 401k plan, the pension plans, whatever, to the city of Milwaukee or to state government X, Y, and Z. And it's very important that there's not a quid pro quo or pay to play kind of thing going on, whereby the person who's going after your business pays for your campaign essentially, so that you can you'll get their business because you're paying for their campaign. So in order to help make sure that that's not going on, which it is not from our members anyways, giving to IFAPAC, they've created these rules which say that a member who is a registered representative, and they have all these vague rules that we have been fighting for years, but of who's a covered associate and what a registered representative means. But basically any NAFA member whose company or themselves personally do business with municipalities, these individual people can only give $350 to a person that they can, at the state or local level, that they can vote for, and $150 to a person who they cannot vote for at their state or local level. And so every one of our companies interprets these rules a little bit differently. And so some companies say that they've carved out their group of people that the rule applies to, and everybody else it doesn't apply to. We work with their compliance departments. And so the directive came out of all those conversations with different compliance departments back in 2010 and 11, leading up to the release of SEC's rule. And what that does is it basically gives the member the option, in conjunction with talking to their compliance department, to share their entire contribution at the 60-40 split, direct it to all stay with their federal PAC, or this year we added the new option where they can only share 150 back, because that should satisfy the basic of both the SEC and FINRA's rules and allow our states to get some money back in those pots. So this will be a good way to go after people whose directives say no and ask them to go back to their companies with this new option. Or if you get told no right up front, you can say, have you checked to them about this new option? Because it should satisfy those rules. I've been working with New York Life, Voya, and AXA and Mass Mutual recently, and they are all viewing positively that 150 option. Some of them had already implemented it without in their own compliance department. So we think that that will be a new helpful tool to at least, instead of getting straight up no, you can at least get 150 instead of nothing back. So that's kind of where the directive comes from. And that's why SEC and FINRA are listed on here along with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. And if people just sell insurance and they don't have a securities license, they're most likely not going to be covered by SEC and FINRA. But we don't get to make that determination, no matter how much we want to. And then also our 51 states have their own rules. Colorado, Massachusetts, Hawaii, and Alaska have rules about the amounts that can go back to their states. Colorado, it's only $575 during election cycle. Massachusetts is $500. I won't tell you all 4 of them. And then on top of those types of rules, they also have rules regarding their own state pay-to-play rules. Some don't pertain to insurance agents, and some do. And so we are constantly trying to work within all of these different sets of rules. But the FEC is mainly our big overarching rule, because as a collecting agent, we're fundraising for both the federal PAC and the 51 state PACs. But the FEC's kind of rules kind of trump all of their state rules, and not just because it's the federal government, but even the states themselves in many cases say so. And when I say that they say so, they don't type that out in writing per se, but they follow the direction of the FEC, and many of them will take the FEC filing if a federal PAC gave at a state level. We do not operate that way with our PACs, because we don't want to deal with all the affiliation rules if we did that. But if IFAPAC, the federal arm of IFAPAC, decided to give to a state candidate, then we could file our FEC report at the state level, and that is why I say that the FEC trumps everything. And basically, these bullet points up here really talk about all the different things that the FEC controls. They control what we discuss publicly and privately, meaning members and non-members, how much, who we can ask for, how contributions are determined, administrative and political, what time frame contributions must be deposited in, going from one person to the next and there on out, the amount that is required to be raised at different events, and then we have a variety of reporting requirements, both at the FEC level and at the State Secretary of State's office level. So as we keep going forward, for you guys, IFAPAC has a bunch of resources out there already up on our websites that you guys can look at, besides calling myself when we replace Shannon, and hopefully that person will likely be able to answer these questions as well. But we have the social media website and best practices, and I had attached that to this request and asked you guys to take a look at it. That's probably for working on social media, advertising things, and all of our state's websites. That's probably the greatest resource to help you. And I will get a link to it up in the chat. I have some links up in the chat already, but I didn't get them all in. Every year we produce a advocacy guidebook that we give out at the National Advocacy Meeting, and we put it online. There is a link to it in the YM Leader Center and the IFAPAC resources, and it's still on the NAFA.org website under Maggie's grassroots section. So you can also find that there. And then the IFAPAC booth rules specific for when you're going to host a booth. Those rules are in the YM IFAPAC leadership section. So we do have a bunch of resources out there that you can access and look at as you're going forward and trying to plan things with your states. One of the FEC's major rules is called the 1/3 rule. I have put as near to perfect as I can the FEC's exact language of the example that they give of how the 1/3 rule works. Basically, if you don't raise, what's in red at the bottom is what really matters. If you're going to raffle off $10 gift certificates, you've spent $100, you need to raise $300 at that event, or the member, the administrative fund, or the state's general treasury, whichever was the purchaser of these items. And if it was a member who purchased it, then the member donated the item to either the administrative fund or the general treasury. But then you have to pay back part of that fund. So many states like to have silent auctions like we do at National, or other types of raffles, or just kind of a giveaway, you know. Not the free giveaway that everybody can get, but just, you know, make a contribution and you're entered to get the latest iPad or whatever. But what our states aren't really great at doing is following through on this 1/3 rule and understanding that they really have to pay attention.
Stephanie, can I ask a question? Is that only for political monies, or is it for admin monies too? Is that rule apply for
It is only for political monies. The FEC really only cares about political money. However, we have 27 states that allow corporate dollars into their elections. And so because we are a collecting agent and we have to kind of abide by all of those laws that I showed you earlier, what we don't do on the political side, we also don't do on the administrative side, because you don't, the point of the rule is you don't want to be spending $10,000 to raise $1,000. Like, that's just not a worth it kind of fundraiser. And so that's the point of the rule. New Mexico has done administrative only fundraisers, and I still kind of make them run through the hoops of this just so they can see what they would do. As far as this right here, this rule, this word in the last sentence, this should reimburse. I don't know why the FEC says should reimburse, but it does. That's what their rule says. So when it's on the administrative side, I go by the should, which means I don't have to. However, if it is a political dollar, that should is no longer a should, that is a must. And I do this at the national level as well. We've had the silent auction the past few years. We have always, because it's great when you do a silent auction or have more than one items or do it over a couple of days event, you can use the total raised from the whole event. You can use the total of all the items, or you can do it item by item when you're trying to make the 1/3 rule. So they do give you a bunch of different ways to work through it. But essentially, when you guys are looking at prizes, our members inevitably say, well, why don't we give away a scooter? Or why don't we give away this or that? And we really have to be conscious of the fact that even though they're donating it to us, it still costs something. Now, if we get it on sale, because what the FEC goes by is how much does an item cost is the actual retail value. Now, if you buy it on sale, that sale price goes, when for our silent auction, the first one 2 years ago, Jane Westholter donated a bunch of signed and autographed items. And so when you go and look at their retail value, you know, if you sell them on eBay, when we're looking at items like that, that eBay retail value is not the retail value. It's just the value of the shirt, and you know, that's about it. So it's easier when you get signed items for retail value. You don't have to worry that, you know, a Kobe Bryant jersey would actually sell for eBay on $6,000, but it's basically the $90 cost of the jersey is what you're going after. And so food and beverage at events don't go into the 1/3 rule. The FEC says that entertainment goes into the 1/3 rule. So if you're hosting an event and you hire a band or something, I can't imagine that we at NIFA would ever have the PAC hire a band for an event. But if we did, then the cost of the band would also be a part of this 1/3 rule, that we would have to raise more money than the band, 3 times more money than the band cost, because that's the ridiculous rule of the FEC. So when our states, and we love doing this at national level, we just got to keep this in mind. I've been working for PACs for 15 years now. I have one time been in the circumstance where I had to pay back dollars to my administrative fund because we didn't raise enough money. If you just think about it and do it right, price the raffle ticket, or, you know, handle the how people earn chances or whatever properly, you should be able to do this where you never have to pay back the general treasury or the administrative.
Yeah. Hey, Steph, I think California probably doesn't do this right.
Most states don't.
So what they did, well, they had their IFAPAC raffle this year kind of got all screwed up anyways, because somebody forgot to bring half of the items that were going to come in. So what they did was, for every amount, like, I don't know what Mark decided, but it was like for a certain amount of contribution, you got X number of raffle tickets that you could put into one of 3 buckets of different prizes. So then would we just take the total amount of all of the prizes and then the total amount of money raised, or how?
Money raised, yes. So for that example, and I'll use what I do at what we do at congressional conference as well. So we have 20 items at congressional conference that usually cost about $1,000 to $1,500 the past 2 years. So that's the total amount. So then the amount that's paid for each item is then added up, and as long as that total is 3 times the total amount that was spent or donated on the items, then that is right. So for your 3 items, you know, you would total those 3 items for California, and then because they actually did it a smart way, even though they didn't necessarily know they were. So if you increase your contribution, you got 1 chance. If you just made your normal contribution, or if you increased, you got 2 chances. If you did your normal contribution, you got 1 chance. If you went from, you know, monthly or from annual to monthly, you got 5 chances or something like that. So then essentially what you were able to do is count that whole amount that was raised at that event. So that should have been 6 times more than whatever those 3 items cost, and so that you were fine. And somebody just needs to keep a spreadsheet that calculated all of that once, saved somewhere. None of our states do it. I'm constantly going back with them and doing it, you know, and walking them through it. But as long as they keep the spreadsheet on file in their records, then everybody is safe and legal. And that's kind of what matters with the 1/3 rule. I have done diamond tennis bracelets. I've done things called receptions called diamonds and ice. Like, depending on your crowd and who's going to be there, there's almost nothing you can't make this work on. So, but we do, like, it was hard when I did a diamond tennis bracelet that was worth $5,000. You know, it was lucky that it was at a P+P, not here at NIFA, but it was at the annual meeting with, you know, thousands of people. So we knew we were going to raise that type of money. At any state convention, unless you're Texas, California, or Florida, I really don't recommend an item being too much over $1,500. Most of our minimum is $4,000 that most of our states raise, and most of them raise somewhere between the $6,000 and $10,000 range. So just when you are thinking about that, you know, when they come up with these crazy ideas, that's what you want to keep them in thinking about as far as that 1/3 rule goes. All right, so next we have our widely attended events. As these are happening, I feel like they're starting to pick up, even though everybody said we were going to do away with all these widely attended events. Now they're just being open events, and that's what I wish I could go in there and change, where it says non-member events to open events, because that's what it is. It's a member-only event or an open event, in my opinion. And so it really, as far as the FEC is concerned, whether it's a member-only or a non-member event, we still have to do kind of these things that I'm about to talk about with you guys. So, but especially if it's a open event where non-members will be at, you need to have a way to verify membership on site. So with YM, I believe, I don't know how to do it, but I believe that it's a function that you guys can check membership from like a tablet or your laptop right there, because there's a mobile friendly side of YM that we can look up if they're members or not. So, or what I do at all of my meetings is I print out the list before I walk out the door of all members that are in attendance, and we have no less than 10 copies of those at the IFAPAC booth when we're at ConCon or P+P or even NAM, and NAM is a member-only event. But so we always have that with us. As we move forward, we're looking in to ways to, on badges at things like P+P, to have like, you know, a NAFA member kind of logo put on their name badge or a sticker or something so that we can easily identify them. And that can be something that's replicated at the state level at state events. We're exploring ideas. Michelle, this is the first time she's hearing that, but Sue has been talking about that with me for a year. And so we're trying to think of different things that may work before we go present them to Michelle, but that would be the ultimate way to be able to do this, so you don't have to carry around a book of, you know, the 1,000 members, and as we grow our membership, the 2,000 members and 3,000 members in a state when you're at a statewide event. If we're on the main stage and it's a member-only event, we can do anything for IFAPAC. You can put people's pictures, you can thank them, you can talk anything you want about the PAC. But if it's an open event and there's non-members or it's a shared event, all you can basically do from the main stage / PowerPoint presentation point of view is talk about the fact that you have a PAC, that NAFA has a PAC, what it does. And this is laid out in that social media kind of website event thing, best practices piece that I talked about earlier. But you're very, very limited as to what you can say and can't say if it's an open and shared event. You can't say only members can contribute, but you can say that members should go to spot XYZ IFAPAC booth, you know, booth 27. I don't know how, you know, if you call them all by numbers at the state, or, you know, however you work that, you can direct the NAFA members to go to a specific location where they can be talked to about IFAPAC. But even at that location, you have to be able to verify and kick people out that aren't members.
So Stephanie, does that mean we can't like recognize contributors on the slideshow and stuff? Because
if non-members are in the room, you cannot recognize members from the PowerPoint slide. Now at P+P we do that because for the longest time, this will slowly have to change as we get more and more non-members coming to P+P. And it may change this year. But there's what's called a de minimis rule that the FEC has, but they don't define the de minimis rule as to any percentage. So it's kind of open for interpretation. The best FEC lawyers, what they say is keep it to less than 3%. The rule was basically to intend to cover food staff and wait staff and those types of people that are being in the room. It's not, you know, you're going to have 20 people in the room and the one CEO from, you know, who's not a member. Well, unfortunately, that means you can't do that you can't put a flyer on the tables unless you know that only NAFA members are going to be sitting at these tables, and, you know, CPA, because we often pair across the country. I hear that we're pairing with CPA groups a lot. So, you know, and the CPAs are going to sit at different tables, then you could do something on those tables. But otherwise, you cannot even do recognition. The FEC ridiculously thinks that a thank you is a solicitation, because if you are recognizing someone for contributing, then you're benefiting them in some way that you are not benefiting another person. They're ridiculous. I 100% agree, but it's unfortunately the rule. So there is, you can have recognition for them at that IFAPAC area, because like I said, you can pick people out of that area, but you cannot do it in PowerPoint slides if you're doing a shared event.
So just real quick, so you're saying that we shouldn't even try to apply the de minimis rule?
I would say I would not bother trying to apply the de minimis rule. I mean, if you can say that it's, and spouses don't count, because spouses or adult children are solicitable and in our solicitable class, so they wouldn't count against that de minimis rule. But I mean, I would say, I mean, if you go, what is 1% of 20? That's basically one extra person. I mean, it's not that much. It's two people, but
yeah, but for, I was thinking specifically for our larger state events and stuff, I would say it's easily less than 2% of the members or people that are in the room are non-members. You know, I mean, like easily. I could see a small like chapter event, it wouldn't be good.
yes.
Like a monthly meeting or a watch party type event, you know, unless you knew everybody there was a member. But I'm thinking of our state conferences specifically, and it seems like those, I don't know, Wendy, you've been working with it longer than I have, but do we ever get that many more? I mean, I just can't think of, I'm thinking of Iowa specifically.
I mean,
I suppose a lot of that depends on, you know, if we're making a specific push to bring non-members, like when we do a mass mailing and we say that if they join, you know, at the event or something, then they get a refund and things like that, where we do incentives. But yeah, for the most part, you're right.
Yeah, I think we know who all the non-members are because we make them register.
And with you, and here's what I'm going to say, and I'm telling you guys what I would tell any other state exec out there, because I don't want everybody making, you know, that determination, because everybody's going to interpret it differently, just like the companies do with pay-to-play rule. But if we can come to a mutual agreement and an understanding, then I would be fine with that. But like Tennessee just did their road show, so they were having a bunch of smaller meetings, and they got a total of 20 new people at those smaller meetings. And I'm sure that they were past that de minimis rule based on those smaller meetings.
Right.
So it just depends, you know, because if you're doing a caravan or road show or whatever, then that's going to, even though that's a state meeting, that's still breaking it back down into smaller meetings. So I think you just got to be very smart about it. We do it at national. We go by that de minimis rule because we know we have the DAFA people in the room and we have this, but we have agreed, the lawyers have agreed here at national that it meets their our de minimis standard at P+P. So we still do recognition. Now, as we are moving towards the new model of getting more and more non-members, we are going to have to re-examine that from national. But yes, Michelle, at a large state meeting that's more like a P+P type meeting, I would say go with the de minimis rule, because we have done that, but you have to be careful, because if you're doing a push to get non-members there, then we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, and so everybody, this would include not just paid registrants, it would include your speakers, your exhibit personnel.
Yep.
You know, everything.
And that's what the de minimis rule was meant to cover: speakers who are still hanging out in the room and your wait staff. You know what I'm saying? Like, really, that's what it was meant to cover. That's what the legal experts tell us when we go sit in the meetings with them, is that really what it was kind of meant to cover. But yes, and when the exhibitors come in the room that are non-members, the CEOs other companies that aren't members or CEOs of other associations. Like, we're starting to have that more and more. So, but that's the rules. That's how we interpret it here. And, you know, we have to do our best to stay legal. And I want to be as liberal as I can be with while still staying in the rules.
Yeah.
And if you come to me with something and if we have a disagreement on it, I'm going to take it. We have, through our membership with the National Association of Business Political Action Committees that I participate in, we get a little bit of legal counsel from Jan Barron, who's at Wiley Ryan and Fielding, and Jan is, if not the top, within the top 3 of election law. So if ever Shannon and I disagreed, and it would be nuances between Shannon and I would always go to the lawyer, just because we're not lawyers, so let them arbitrate it for us. So know that that's going to happen too. I'm going to tell you my expert opinion, and if there's still major disagreement or pushback, I'm going to go get the legal opinion, because it's easier for me to hide behind that and say, well, this is what the lawyer says, so tough nuggies, buddy.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for us here as a team is that we just need to make sure that our members are totally aware of this, so that when they later come back and say, why didn't you have those slides up? We can say, well, because we're prohibited from doing it because we had too many non-members in the room, right? And this is the rule. We have to follow the rules. So, you know, it's like you can go in with the best plans, but in the end, if you look at your reg list and you've got more than 2% of the members or people attending are non-members, regardless of whether they're paying or not, you've got to follow the rules.
What is the exact percent? Is it 2 or is it 3?
So
Less than 3, you said.
right, they say what the experts tell us is less than 3.
Yeah.
So 3 is like pushing it, you know. So I would stick with 2, but that's what they tell us. When you are doing events where it's a shared or open event, a way that you can disseminate IFAPAC information is in their registration packets, and the word packets should be in quotes like this, because I know we don't give out like big folders of information, but at the registration desk, they have to come pick up their name badge or something, and at that point, at the registration, you should know if they're a member or not, and then you could hand members IFAPAC information, or if it's like at NAM and they have a little small envelope, shove a flyer in their envelope, you know, with their name badge and everything already in it. And you can do that because you're controlling who it's going into, and that it's member only. And I think that's a great way to do it for the smaller meetings. Or even at ConCon, when ConCon first started in 2013, IFAPAC didn't really do fundraising like we do now at Congressional Conference, but what we did is the name badges, because we gave them pre-stuffed at that time. We put little like smiley face stickers on people who were non-contributors, so that we knew those were the people to go up and talk to. And you could take that same method and put like a green dot on someone's name badge. I would not recommend this for a Day on the Hill type event, because you don't want the legislators asking for that. But like, put some type of, you know, dot on their name badge, so you know that, so that you can say to your 5 people who are going to be doing the asking, only talk to those people who have this marking on their name badge, or who are wearing this type of pin or something like that. Whatever, however you want to handle something like that. But that's unfortunately the best way to handle something like getting out information, or even putting like a recognition flyer in that registration packet. That's if you want to think of better options than that, I have not thought of, and even Shannon, when she came on board, did not think of better options of ways that we can really do it, other than you can have the booth in a separate area and direct, you know, say NAFA members go to that booth, but you still have to deal with picking them out. Then booths, running an IFAPAC table has its own rules, like the mandatory must keep a copy of the list of all members on site. You have to post words little, I usually put them in acrylic frames that stand up on the IFAPAC booth tables that says non-members contributions will be sent back. Then the normal disclaimer language, you know, an IFAPAC contribution is for political purposes. If you told me if you can split, it will be shared. You cannot benefit or be disadvantaged from your contribution. The normal booth rules have to be at the booth and kind of up. We just stick them in an acrylic frame kind of on each side of the table. That's how we handle that. And then every single state has different, at their state gaming convention, has different rules. So when you want to do these raffles or ring tosses or silent auctions, you should be checking with the state gaming convention. Many states don't allow for political action committees specifically to hold raffles or those types of things. So you have to worry about that. And then in Georgia, you have to pay it's like $100 fee to get a permit to hold a raffle. In other states, they don't want you to use alcohol as part of raffles. There's all sorts of, sometimes you can only hold them during certain hours. So those are other things you should check into when your states want to have a game, some type of game. Now, not all games are gambling games, but it would require us a much longer conversation to get into that. But you can, you know, envision what's not a gambling game is a game that everybody has a chance to play in. So everybody who's at the event, if they make a contribution, they have a chance to get into that raffle, that, you know, to get into that event. And it's not a game of chance per se. And so it's crazy on the rules. Call me and, you know, we'll go to the state gaming website together and we'll read what they say and we'll go through it. And again, if I'm unsure of what I'm reading, I'm going to send it to Jan Bear and I'm going to say, can I do this or can I not do this, so that I can be sure. If I in any way question myself, then I go to the lawyer because I can. And the only reason I won't just open him up directly to you is because we're supposed to use him minimally and sparingly because it's a free service that we get. And NABPAC has 1 million members. And once you start asking too many specific questions, then they kind of cut you off from the service and say, that you have to hire him for legal services. And then unfortunately, we don't have that kind of funded yet.
And I was just going to say, Stephanie, that's not a problem. I think we just know that if we have any concerns, if something new is being done with PAC and we're not sure, we should circle around. I mean, you guys can start with Wendy.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know the answer, you know where to go. So anything new, I think, is the key. Because I feel like anything that we've been doing in the past, when I say new, I mean any new client stuff that's done, but any of the clients we've been working with a while, we've kind of already vetted those rules and stuff. But then new stuff that comes up, we've got to make sure that that's legal. We can't just assume the volunteer knows what's going on, because I think that's where we've gotten in trouble, is we've assumed that these volunteers know, but they really don't.
They really don't know what they're doing. So, we're always looking for ways to kind of combine our grassroots side and our PAC side together at events. And so a lot of the grassroots events are events where you invite state or federal legislators to come speak. And these are great ways to combine and show our members how grassroots and IFAPAC kind of work together. But you gotta be aware of a few things. So check deliveries are not fundraising events, and some states have attempted. I don't think any of our states that we manage have ever attempted to do this, but some states have. They've been like, ooh, we're gonna go, we've set up a check delivery with Congressperson X, Y, and Z. You know, make contributions so that you can attend the check delivery. That is not a good way to do a check delivery, is because the state wants to go show this member their appreciation. This should be a tool that you use to bring new members in. We shouldn't be getting their PAC contribution just so they can attend a check delivery and see what that's like. legislators, when they come to speak at your event, you can ask them to talk about the importance of PAC contributions to your members. Many of them have stories and will tell stories about how when they were first running for office, they still keep on their desk the list of the people who didn't give them money early enough, or the list of the people who gave them debt retirement money, or things like that. And so it does matter to them, and a lot of them are willing to talk about that in part of their larger overall speeches. I don't know so much about the state legislators, but definitely at the federal legislative level. And so while I say they will speak about it, the very next bullet says never discuss IFAPAC in front of legislators. Don't then, while that legislator is still in the room, get up on the main stage and ask the members to make a contribution while that legislator is still in the room. Make sure they have left the room, and then never discuss IFAPAC in front of legislators. Also means when you're having state capitals or even Capitol Hill days up here at National, that's not the appropriate time to talk about what the member is giving or how much NAFAPAC has given to the legislator. It's just not an appropriate time to do that. So try to keep them separate while we're still trying to show how grassroots and IFAPAC work together. And none of that's legal, but it's just some best practices to know and understand. And then this last bullet is what is a legal point. Many state capitals restrict the ability to have fundraisers on state capitol property that aren't necessarily for the legislators. So some states have tried to have like an IFAPAC breakfast in conjunction with their Day on the Hill when they were hosting it in the Capitol property. And so some states have restrictions against that. So just a good general rule to not do that. Have the breakfast off-site at some restaurant and then everybody go up to Capitol Hill if you want to do that way. Because I do think receptions the night before or breakfasts the morning of or the morning after state days on the Hill are great places to have IFAPAC fundraisers, because these people are here, they get it. They bought in some way, somehow, to our advocacy process. So, but again, it's trying to show the value of the two legs of the stool, while in fact keeping them separate so that we don't have that mingling. So that's just what I wanted to talk about with legislators and PAC events. Then advertising for events and social media. So you can put an IFAPAC event on your state's website calendar, or advertise it on your state's social media. But all you can do is say pretty much is IFAPAC is hosting whatever the event is, poker night on January 27th at 5:30 p.m. For more information, click here. That's all that can be put on any type of social media advertising. And once they click here, that has to be password protected, because only members can see it. And it's very hard to restrict Twitter to members only, and it's very hard to restrict all of our state's websites to members only. So you can go ahead and put the events on a calendar that anybody could see, but once they click to find more information, that information has to be password protected. And there's not a whole lot more to say about that, except for that makes it really difficult and really hard to do things. The IFAPAC advocacy site is password protected. Parts of YM are password protected, that they have to be logged into. So unfortunately, I don't have the answers for us yet here, as I'm still trying to figure out all of YM, but I do know that parts of YM are password protected, and we can make pages member only pages and things like that. So when you're doing events that are going to be open to members and non-members, it's really important that if part of it is going to be IFAPAC, any part of it, that when they click there for IFAPAC information, it must be behind the firewall and password protected.
So just to clarify, we can say that we're having an event and give the date and time, but if you can't like talk about the cost or say register.
Nope. And especially if the registration, if it's an IFAPAC event, like
Right.
if the registration fee is an IFAPAC contribution, you cannot do that, no. Because telling them how much it costs according to the FEC is a solicitation.
Okay.
Stephanie, I just want to clarify, because we have these events that you know in Wisconsin. Now, if we are taking the members' money and the members' money, we're not actually charging except until they get to the door, and that would be an IFAPAC contribution. And then non-members' money will go to NAPA Wisconsin, not PAC. Are we okay on that?
Because you're taking the money at the door, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we changed, because
Yeah.
we thought that was the cleanest way, is just to take the members' money at the door.
Yes, because there you're able to confirm who is a member and who's not a member, and they're filling out the IFAPAC form, which is essentially making them verify, yes, this is personal dollars and all of that other stuff to make their contribution. So yes, what you guys have moved to in Wisconsin, and what they were doing before was the registration was all going into one pot, and unfortunately the FEC would have considered that commingled at that moment until all of that money has to be administrative, which isn't a problem for the money to go administrative. Some few states need to raise more administrative dollars, but Laura is very picky about where the money goes, and she wants it all as much political as she can, which
No, Laura's easy breezy.
yeah, You're talking
She
to
hopes some it goes to Spexpert's bonus.
Oh, yeah, right.
you're talking to a girl that has worked for NAPA for 8 years, and for the first time in 8 years, less than a month ago, she gave me she's been nice to me for the first time ever and gave me a compliment. So
It was an off day.
exactly. I went down to Diane.
We're recording this, okay? So let's remember that.
Okay, sorry. But it was nice. It was really nice. I felt liked for once from her, so it was nice. But then we have our websites, and this is the bane of my, besides trolling the internet for how all of our states have done illegal posts, I also have to troll all the websites that I can troll, because once they talk about IFAPAC, there's very little that they can say that cannot be password protected. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and switch my other screen real quick. Okay, supposed to be real quick. Share this screen.
So that'd be like those rolling banners and stuff. We should not have had those up there because it says donate today on them. You know, those remember the train banner we had that for a while?
Oh yes, I remember.
That was on our NAPE Iowa website forever.
Did I lose my interwebs being up? Hold on, ladies, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I'm just gonna click the link from here and we'll go there. So a couple weekends ago, whenever it pops up, give me a second. Okay. Here, can you see NAPA Pennsylvania's site?
We see you.
Okay, let me reshare again, sorry. Go away, best practices. Okay, where is
I had to pick one of my states.
I just, because it's the states that, here we go, share. It's the state that I got called on. Dennis Cuccinelli had gone to Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago, and he happened to see their site, and he knew from looking at it, because I've built it into his head, that their site was illegal. And so I just want to go through this site. So the first part.
First of all, they don't have a brand compliant logo, do they?
I know, they're a mess. I told you they're one of my states and they're a problem.
Yeah, everything about this site we could we could pick it apart, but I just decided I'll focus on what's illegal with the IFAPAC section. So it comes here and it pretty clearly asks for a contribution in multiple ways. There's no disclaimer language on here, but it's an illegal solicitation because it is open to everybody. I came here, I'm not logged in. I have any Joe Schmo from Idaho who is not a NAFA member from Idaho could come here and see this, and then they would be illegally solicited because they're not a member, illegally solicited because there's no disclaimer language, and all sorts of ways is this just wrong. There is putting up art, and we haven't had the investor level for a long time anyways, but putting the contribution levels up is a solicitation, whether we agree that it's a solicitation or not. The FEC thinks it is. So those have to come down. It says you can contribute to IFAPAC right there. I mean, pretty much there's very little that we could take out of here in order to...
It would be a blank page, basically.
Yes. So we could say that IFAPAC is the term used to describe collectively the PAC sponsored by NAFA at the federal level, and that each PAC is a fund that supports campaigns of candidates for public office who understand, and IFAPAC's goal is to... I would not use this old while any U.S. citizen can contribute, only members can. I would just use only NAFA members can contribute to IFAPAC. Now they start putting the disclaimer language when they say contributions are not tax deductible, but they don't finish it and it shouldn't go there. It talks about where we rank. We can say these things here, and then we'd have to say for more information, click here, because everything else is pretty much illegal on that page. And I would just want to reword this because I know this is old language that's been used for 20 years. And then we've been working together, all of us, with Stacy and Amanda on this call to work through Wisconsin's page, and they have gone, I'm on their home page because they talk about IFAPAC first here on the home page, but what they say is factual under the promise. What this is perfectly legal language that's here on the home page.
Don't be legal.
Yay. And then when we come over to advocacy and click into IFAPAC and APEC, over here, what we have, because I know that they have recently changed the language, all of this is legal as well. So we are doing very well, and this talks about Wisconsin specific, so that's great. The only problem we have here left, and I'm sorry, Stacy, and I haven't contacted you because I wanted to use it as an example here, is when Stacy went and I gave her the link to the new e-advocacy site, she linked the click here to the video. And it's a fabulous little video, but unfortunately, it's a solicitation.
Hi, I'm Kevin May,
And let me stop this.
CEO of the National.
Oh, look, there's Kevin.
Yes, okay, I stopped it now.
Hi, Kevin.
So it's a great little video, and I hope everybody will use it. But because we linked it directly to the video, and the video in itself is a solicitation, it's a legal solicitation because it ends with the last slide is a disclaimer. But because when you click here, anybody can click here and get there, not members only. So that's the part we need to fix, is that once they click there, it has to go to the home page of our new advocacy site. And in our chat, I do have the home page linked in this meeting to the Advocacy Action Center. And then they'll just have to click IFAPAC from there. Unfortunately, otherwise we could give you the link directly to the IFAPAC section, but when they click the link, they're going to go right to the login page. Whereas at least if we send them to the home page, they'll see stuff and then be prompted to log in. And what's great is that I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slide. Is that our logins between YM and the Advocacy Action Center are the exact same. So Michelle is fabulously smart, and we worked out a way in our integrations to make sure that, to make sure that the login for when they log into YM and for when they log into the Advocacy Action Center, it's the exact same email address. So as we're getting them used to going on to YM and start getting more part of that community, they'll start using that email address more. And we, from our end, we're constantly telling them it's the same as what you used to YM. Go get into YM and log in and get used to that, because we need our people to be going back and forth between YM and the Advocacy Action Center. So I think that that's great for us, but the Pennsylvania was the example of a bad site. Wisconsin was the example of a good site. And I'm sorry, Stacy, that we just have the one thing, but it's like only half illegal because of, it's at least legal solicitation. But we will get there, and I have no doubts about it, so no worries. I just saved it because I wanted to show it on here. I'm sorry.
Well, that's good. Hey, so Stephanie, do we have, just as more of a general set question than it is a education about advocacy question, so do we have is something we're going to want to do is do an audit of these sites or whatever, and have you tell us what's wrong with the pages and have them give them a timeline to fix it? And because I think the best time to do that, one of the things we're looking at doing, Suzanne has found the latest integration, or not integration, the latest upgrade to HubSpot will allow us to run our chapter websites through HubSpot. We were thinking we were going to have to go to another provider to do it, but they've added enough functionality that we'll be able to have the state chapters host their websites through the HubSpot platform. Long story short, when we do that, we'll be able to lock down the IFAPAC stuff and have it only maintained by us at the national office. So like you could go in and say to, Suzanne, here's the stuff that our chapter should have on their website. And it'll be exactly the same page on every website. It might be.
That will be amazing, because we want people to just have the Advocacy Action Center, and then they can break out pieces and stuff like that, of course, of it. But yes, that would be wonderful and great. I've been here for 8 years now, and I've slowly been going through the states, because it's hard with all of them, because it's not just that their websites are illegal, their social media is illegal, and half the time they're filing, making the federal PAC illegally. And so I have to pick which illegal thing do I want to fix first with them.
Right.
Well, yes, we should. We most definitely should. And as we're rolling out this new Advocacy Action Center, that's what I am also trying to do, is tell them to use this link, replace all of the links on their website, and only use this link, because when they click here for more, we know that they're legal once they sign in.
Right.
They see on the new, and that's going to be the final slide. Will be talking a little bit more about the Advocacy Action Center.
So if you're okay with that, I think the plan is that these new chapter websites will be launched with the new brand in January. I'm almost wondering, I haven't seen a demo of it yet, but she met with them last week, and they worked out, because it says it has the functionality, but we couldn't figure out how to make it work. And she figured out why they had not upgraded part of our platform with the latest release. But anyways, supposedly that's all fixed. I haven't checked it yet, but if that's the direction we're going to go, it'll be just so much easier, because then we can have that, IFAPAC menu item.
Yes.
That is going to redirect where we want it to redirect to.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly. Yes. That is the goal moving forward, is as we NAFA National take over the rest of the NAFA world, that we bring everybody in line. So, many of our states like to make their own contribution forms, and definitely a lot of our NAFA states, because Iowa's been doing it forever, And most of the time, everybody has followed what NAFA National has done. And over the years that I've been here, we've slowly been changing ours because the national form wasn't exactly doing everything correctly either. And so there's the three big things that need to be done is we need to collect the demographic information, which is the name, the employer, the title, and the home address. And over here, what I'm showing you is this is what I have to report to the FEC. This is one person's FEC record when I report, and Wendy does this all the time for the states that we manage. She does it for their state filings, and it's pretty much the same information has to go to the FEC as well as to the Secretary of State's office, but it is required. And when we don't put their titles or their employer names on the contribution forms that we make, which is the place where NAFA National was falling down for the longest time, we're not actually meeting those FEC standards, because the FEC standard is we're supposed to tell them on the contribution form if we don't have one of these fields, name, title, employer, home address, and try and make them fill that out there. The only way you can get around not putting this whole name, employer, title, home address information on there is if we use the ID number. And we know we want to get away from using the ID number. So the only contribution form that will use the ID number, you guys can do it at the state level. If you guys want to do that on your forms too, I have no problems with that. It makes it easier for us on our end. But the renewal notices that National sends out will continue to maintain that ID number. But if the states don't maintain that ID number because they're not going to be used to using it like they have been, then we need to make sure that when we do our own solicitation and contribution forms from the state level, that we put the name, employer, title, and home address, because it's supposed to remind them that we need all of that information. And then the disclaimer information, which is in the chat window, I have put in there the very last line of the disclaimer is very specific to Massachusetts, because the Massachusetts, as I said, they're one of the states that has their own limits. Only 500 a year, both politically and administratively, can go back to Massachusetts State IFAPAC because of their state rules, and their state Secretary of State's office requires our disclaimer to have that Massachusetts specific language in it. So anything I do from National will use that disclaimer. But if you guys are doing stuff just to Iowa, just to Wisconsin, just to your state, as long as it's not Massachusetts, you are free to take out the last line of the disclaimer that starts with "for NAFA Massachusetts."
Okay. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing we did on our forms, specifically in Iowa, was we came up with bigger contribution levels and fewer of them.
Yes.
And then the only other thing I think we did different, although I'm not sure we updated it since you guys have updated your language, is we used to have our local chapters on there so that we didn't have to look that up before we sent it in.
Yes.
I
believe with Beth that we had updated that on the Iowa forms before she left.
Okay, good.
But I mean,
And where are you going to save this for us somewhere? This slide, to make sure we can double check the language?
Sure, yes, I can. We can save this slideshow, this slide, anywhere you like. I can email it to everybody.
I looked in the chat window and I didn't see it, so I don't know.
Okay. No, it's not a problem because I have it right here so that I could go ahead and paste it into the chat window. Okay. Okay, I see it, but I will repaste it. Not a problem.
I don't know why.
That's
Are you
okay.
Are you guys seeing it?
No, I look too.
Okay, I'm gonna hit.
There it is.
All right.
There it is. Yay.
And then here is then you probably didn't get the first email to the advocacy, the link. Let me do this real quick, ladies. I'm sorry. All right, and then I just sent the link to the Advocacy Action Center as well.
And that's what you want to replace the other link in the Wisconsin site, right?
That is what I would like. Yes, please, and thank you.
Awesome.
So,
And Stace, have we used this new language that you have on Wisconsin on the other ones?
No, I have not double checked. So I can go and double check that. The one with Wisconsin was like, some of it was specific to like Wisconsin. So, basically what Lizzie did was take everything from the old sites and put it on the new sites. So whatever Iowa would have had, will go to the new site, their advocacy. But I know their main pages are all identical. And so we'll have to fix this. We'll click here on Maine, Wisconsin, Iowa, and DC probably, and whoever else has that advocate, differentiate verbiage.
California's is way illegal. I was looking while we were on this. So.
Who's way illegal?
California still has that train thing on it.
I was going to say, I know we've been illegal for years.
I hate that train image.
Put an image.
Oh yeah, we haven't used the train image in a very long time.
I know, but I really liked it.
I know, me too, Michelle.
I think
we don't all have to like them, and that's why back then I was switching logos every year. So if you didn't like it, it wasn't going to stay too long.
Right. There we go.
Okay. So
Stacy can be in charge of what our team likes.
Yes, that is totally fine. All right. So the next slide is just overall ask first and act second, because whenever NAFRA gets a new treasurer, they also become the legally responsible person for our federal PAC, and Brock is listed as the PAC treasurer, and I'm the assistant treasurer with the Federal Election Commission. So when we make boo-boos and we get letters, they get sent to Brock's attention, which is always fun. But it's his name on the records and on the documentation, so we have to call Brock and we have to tell Brock. So if there's any doubt in your mind, like think about who wants to tell Brock, because
I nominate Stacy.
Because and when you guys are talking to the states and they're proposing crazy ideas and you're just like, I know Stephanie's never gonna say yes to this, just hide behind, just hide behind the FEC, because I mean, they're the ones who are giving us all these crazy rules and say, the Federal Election Commission isn't going to allow for this. I mean, they do put people in jail, and they do give really, really big fines.
We do not want Brock to go to jail.
Yes.
So Brock would go to jail if some state did something wrong?
Yes. So when our states don't, if we didn't arbitrate it properly, so luckily the FEC generally allows for things to go to adjudication first instead of, but yes, if we continue to make violations and not paying fines and things like that, it's Brock who would go to jail. It's only been 1 year of me saying I get to send Brock to jail. It was Matt Tassi, but now it's Brock. But yes, it would be Brock who would serve the time in jail, because we are collecting it, because IFAPAC is a collecting agent. So everything it does, whether the money is eventually going to end up in the state or the federal pot, has to follow these rules. Now, what's great is the FEC is not fully staffed with all their commissioners, nor are they fully staffed to handle everything. But if we got put in violation, we would still go through some sort of process, hopefully. Not, but they just increased their minimum fines this year. So the lowest fine you can get starts at $7,000.
We don't want that.
No, not at all. So ask first, act second. That's just, a good rule of thumb as we go forward. And as you guys do this more and more and we become, more acquainted with each other, you'll know what I feel, is borderline and what I feel is well within the limits and things like that. And I'm sure we'll have times where I go to yawn. And so You'll get to see the legalese speak because I'll send you the exact answer that he sends me, and then we'll talk about how that should be interpreted into normal people speak, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
And then there are many improvements and things coming our way, not only because of YM making things so much awesome and better, but this new Advocacy Action Center, I hope that you guys get a chance to go there and go check it out. But we're here, there's a lot of current improvements and future improvements coming up because of this Advocacy Action Center. So it is mobile friendly. So once you go to that site, you can do it from your phone, you can do it from your iPad. And so it's going to allow at convention, IFAPAC will now have 4 iPads as a P+P, whereby we are going to take our contributions through the Advocacy Action Center, because the people will be able to come right up. It will be the same email address that they use for YM. We'll have it in our 15 copies of the registrants. We'll have their email address in case some of them don't remember which one they use with NAIFA. And they can log in. It will be great because it shows them everything's filled in with their contact information. They just pretty much have to put in the amount. They have the option to sign up to give monthly, to give quarterly, and to sign up for annual credit card contributions. So those quarterly and annual credit card contributions are new offerings that they didn't have before to sign up. It's still at the $25 minimum because it costs a lot of money. The credit cards and PayPal and everybody take their share. So, but they will be able to do that from the phone. When also for people who have GR Mobile downloaded, so when you're doing state days on the Hill and or P+P and things like that, it has a contribute to IFAPAC right there in GR Mobile, and that links to the new Advocacy Center site. What's great is their contribution goes directly to the record and is charged immediately. IFAPAC has never had, it took till about 4 years ago before we had their credit cards charged as soon as they typed them into the interwebs. And now it's charged and it goes on their record immediately. So once we get the automation between YM and Cision synced up, we will be able to get their contribution data into YM much more quickly than we ever have before. So for Emily and Michelle, who have been around the longest that I know of, you know, PAC data could be 10 to 15 days behind sometimes. But this this new functionality of people being able to go right in online will help speed up that process. We have on the Advocacy Action Center, the final tab once you're logged in is called the Profile tab. And this is a great new tab that we can drive our members to, and it shows them their grassroots kind of summary and their IFAPAC kind of summary. So what they've taken action on, who their federal legislators are, who they have relationships with, what their IFAPAC giving history looks like, kind of all in one snapshot on one page. It's a really great new thing. When you guys go logged in as you, none of us have relationships with our legislators, so it only looks like your IFAPAC history in there when we go, but log in as a member. Like I log in as Doug Massey because he's the PAC chair all the time, but log in as one of your members and go look at their site, their page. It'll look a little bit different. And you guys are probably all tagged to your Virginia legislators because you work at NAIFA. But this site also gives us a way, when we used to have the site up, it had a link on the site that says, you know, your legislators are linked to who, you know, whatever your address is that we have on record. If this is not your home address, click this button and it goes back. And Michelle, you'll remember you and I talked about a month ago about what link to use now because it was still linking to the old IMS stuff. Mm-hmm. But somewhere on that site is a link that says if you don't like your address, who it says your legislators are, because it's defaulted to your work address if we don't have a home address, then it will link you back to YM so you can go update your address in YM, and then the next day it'll be updated in Cision, so it'll still take 24 hours to get it back in Cision with the right address, but it'll still be done within 24 hours when that used to take short weeks. So that's going on.
Hey, Stephanie, I did hear from Fu. He's ready to start to do a test on the decision to YM integration. So I told him I still hadn't put that new seed data you gave me this week up, but that I will do that this weekend so he can start doing that every day.
Awesome. Yes. And for now, the PAC data on YM is only through May 12th. So until Michelle or I send the go ahead that says that we're rolling now, they should still come and unfortunately get PAC data from the Cision database because it won't be up to date until we get this process rolling. But it's in there so you can at least find it and look at it.
Stephanie, I have another question too. Are the state legislators included or just the federal?
So for right now, it's just the federal legislators. There is discussion right now where we're talking with ACLI and other states where we would turn on. So if you're looking at the Advocacy Action Center, first tab is the home tab, then it's the Take Action tab, then it's the Grassroots tab. In between there, we're working on turning on the State Action tab, whereby then you would be able to report your state relationships as well as see who your state legislators are. And when your states want to have state action alerts, like we have the federal action alerts, they would all go out through this system. And every state would have that ability. So when New York is having their CE credit law being pushed through, they could do an action alert out through the action alert system, and we'd be able to track it and get all the information about who in New York opened it and participated, and everybody would be able to go in and say, I have a relationship with state legislator XYZ, just like they can go on there right now and report their grassroots connections to their federal legislators. So that's an improvement that's coming I would say within the next 6 months, but we'll see how that all happens. But
yeah, I think they've actually got a good plan for that to open up that advocacy stuff.
Yeah, so I've already worked with our vendor to start getting the quotes and see how we're moving forward with that. So I do see that as coming. Also, from Cision has a email portal, kind of like, HubSpot does and all of those things. And so we will start sending emails like we do now when we ask for contributions, but they'll have personalized links. So it'll go to Laura and it'll go to Doug and it'll go to, Craig, and they'll all get their own. When it says contribute now, when they click contribute now, they'll go straight to the Action Center to their record already logged in, as long as they've logged into the Action Center one previous time. Their link will keep them logged in forever, and they'll be able to go make a contribution very easily. So we'll be able to have some dynamic solicitations. I know Amanda from Laura wants to have solicitations where you can just put buttons on that says, I want to contribute 20 now or 50 now or 100 now. And so we'll be able to do that. If you send them out through Cision to your state, or, I would do it nationally, you can get that personalized link. The renewal notices that National does for fundraising, we send paper notices basically to everybody who's ever given 4 times a year. Those will go electronic next year because we will have this personalized link. The non-contributors report will be in YM in the reports section, but all the other reports will be able to be the contributors and the lapsed and the state region and the local region report when we get that built. Will be able to be run real time out of this Advocacy Action Center in the future as well. So you guys won't be waiting till the 10th for me to give you the information. Now you'll still be waiting till the 10th for your election reports, because I still got to close the books and split the receipts first. But all of those other reports, instead of calling me and saying, I talked to Joe Schmo, did he make a contribution like he said he would? You guys will be able to go check that on demand. Again, we're about 6 to 8 months out on that, but we're working towards, that's the direction we're moving towards, so that, and it's not about, I don't mean it as if I don't want you to call me or the rest of the PAC staff to ask that question, but it's just nice if you guys can look it up. Trey Kelly, and it only really bothers me in December, but in December, Trey calls all the time, and he's like, I just talked to this person, did he contribute, did he contribute? And I cannot wait to say, Trey, go push the button yourself and find out. But Trey's an awesome fundraiser, so I'm always going to answer because he's just seeing who he's got to follow up with and who he's not going to follow up with. So please don't let my attitude have you guys not call and ask us questions. So I apologize for that. But that's kind of where we're moving, and that's kind of the end of this training. I think we're probably at our time limit because I know I don't know how to shut up. But now it's time for you guys to ask me any questions that you have, or we can end the show and go from there.
This isn't about the training, I guess. Are you confirming, or have you, or will you, or do you not want to say it on a recorded message, that we're not having a Back to the States month? One of my friends in Wisconsin was asking.
Yes. So we will likely not have a 100% Back to the States month this year. And your friend has actually been told that multiple times now, but I don't mind saying it's likely not going to happen. But I do believe in 100% months. So we need to set a baseline this year. We needed to reorganize. And that's the other thing that I want to tell you guys is the whole pin and ribbon process and the levels. Next year, everything is changing. We are no longer going to have 8 contribution levels. We're going to go down to 5. We're no longer going to have pins for every single contribution level. We're going to do like, you get a pack gift. So you might get a calendar, dry erase board, or we're going to have 3 pack gifts that they get to choose from and send out, and that's what they'll get. We're going to do away with lapel pins. We really want to stick to the power of 1 pin, the NAFA pin, and the pack has 2 different pins in and of itself. We're going to keep 1 for the lifetime pins because we think that those are good. And then Congressional Council has a pin. So we don't need our people to be wearing 4 different pins.
In addition to ribbons, right?
Right, in addition to ribbons.
Oh, they love their pins, though. My God.
I know, but they're going to get they're going to keep the power of the pin, the NAFA pin. If they're Congressional Council members, they'll have their Congressional Council. And once you get to those lifetime levels, the lifetime levels will have their pins. We're keeping the ribbons. We will never get away from them. Who has the longest ribbon showcase?
Yeah.
My dad, will I go to the restroom, please?
Right, exactly. So, they like to see whose is the longest. So that's
That's a guy thing.
Yes, we will let them keep doing that. So we're going to do that, but we are elongating the lifetime levels too. The lifetime levels right now are 5, 10, 15, and 20, and that's just ridiculous. When we have people giving from the 5,000 up to the people who have given lifetime over 100,000. So we're elongating those levels out. When we're ready to make all those announcements, you guys will know. But know that that's changing for next year. And we're even changing the names of the club levels, because do you guys know if an emissary is higher than a diplomat or an envoy? I mean, you may because you've been around the block now, but mostly you probably have no idea what is what, right?
Right.
I've been here 8 years and I still have to say my little mnemonic device so I can remember what order they go in, okay? And I run the pack, so.
Especially statesman and ambassador. I always get those moves.
Yeah, so we're going away from that. We are going to have, it's going to be like, silver, gold. We're going to keep the top level capital because it's the top level and, everybody is kind of used to that. But we're going to go to a different naming system that will be much easier for everybody. And it's going to be at 25, at 50, and even at numbers that people are easily able to talk about, because 850, 17, 25, 42, whatever, none of that makes sense, right? How can we operate if it's going to make sense to go 25, 50, 100, 210, and 420? And that's how it's going to double, just kind of keep doubling on its way up. It's going to be much easier. And the one new thing that we're going to launch at P+P this year is we have we have a name for everybody who gives monthly now. They are called IFAPAC Defenders. So with our current naming, you would be an ambassador defender. You could just be an ambassador. So ambassador would be people who give $200 or more one time, or if they write 4 different checks throughout the year. But if you were an ambassador defender, then that's you give monthly. And that's because our goal, just like your goal is for membership, is to get people on monthly. They stay longer. It's just better for all around. So if we can attract people to be a part of something, whether you give via bank draft or you give credit card, you're going to be an IFAPAC Defender. So we're going to have a new IFAPAC Defender sticker to give out to everybody that's on monthly. And as we're trying to get people to monthly, that's what we're going to call them and go forward. So we'll talk more about that come P+P. But it's really just anybody who's giving monthly is an IFAPAC Defender. They make sure we have money 365 days a year. They make sure that we have money for special elections when people tap their foot in bathrooms and have to leave because of scandals. We have money to help elect their new person if they don't break all the SEC rules, so that we can support them. So there's just different things like that going on, but these are our rules. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys and gives you a little bit better understanding of the vague nonsense that we all have to deal with, unfortunately, so that we can raise money for IFAPAC. But know that I am here to be a resource for you guys as always, and that we do have legal counsel behind me to help if there's ever a time where I am unsure or there's a disagreement.
Awesome. Well, this has been very helpful, Stephanie. Thanks for taking time out to do it. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Well, it's Friday. It's late in the day. Hope everyone has a fabulous weekend. And I'll talk to you all next week.
Yeah.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye. Recording.